Let's see. Okay, everything appears to be in order. Pollo, how are repairs on Neutro coming?
Same as the last 3 times you asked. Still not ready. At this rate, we're going to need a different plan if we face Destrugalga in a future round.
You're right. I wonder.
Are you sure that's safe to use?
Of course, when Erin drained the coin, she said she made it perfectly harmless to humans. So, in theory, it should still be fine to use since we haven't used it since then. Dearling Kara, I apologize, but your magic coin will need to be drained again. My cat Chiaki swiped it last week so that she could demand more treats and sushi. I am sorry for any trouble this may cause. Sincerely, Zenith. P.S. I think she may have thrown up on it as well. Pollo? Did you write this? Please tell me this is some kind of prank.
Oh, sure. I wrote it with my non-working arms.
Fair point. Pollo, please get Dr. Linksano down here to do an analysis on the coin and see if it needs to be drained again. Also, find out who this Zenith person is and how they got through security.
I'm more concerned about how a cat stole your coin in the first place. But I guess stranger things have happened around here.
I need to talk to my security person. Oh wait, that's me.
Hello everyone, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and welcome to Zen Movies, where I take a look at one of the numerous different films in my collection. Today we have something truly special to discuss. Every now and again, a film comes along that takes me completely by surprise. I walk into the theater, not knowing what to expect, and find myself truly blown away by what I just saw. It happened with Knives Out, a murder mystery that everyone needs to see. It happened yet again with the Lego Movie, and it also happened with today's subject. What was it about this movie that I found so enjoyable? Well, let's dive into Kingsman, The Secret Service, and see what this movie is all about. I think the first thing we need to discuss with Kingsman is the film landscape before Kingsman was released. Back in 2006, James Bond had returned after a small hiatus with Daniel Craig as the new 007. While this new Bond series was well received by audiences, there was a distinct tonal shift that people noted with the series and the spy films that came out in this time period. These films were far more serious in tone and tended to focus on the darker aspect of the world in more realistic settings. It wasn't just James Bond that ratcheted up the seriousness of the genre. The Mission Impossible series and the Jason Bourne franchise were also picking up steam at that point and served to steer spy films in a new direction. The spy genre began to focus on grim reality above all else, with governments being the villain instead of megalomaniacs. They steered away from the weird henchmen with strange gimmicks like Jaws and Oddjob to soldiers who were indistinguishable from one another. Fantastical elements were eliminated, and the formula was shifted to fit the new direction that films were headed in. Now, I don't think the genre shift was necessarily bad, because we still did get interesting spy stories, but not many that spoke to my personal tastes. I yearn for the old days of Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan, where we had these ridiculous schemes for world domination and it was all just played for fun. It turns out I'm not the only one, because one day director Matthew Vaughn sat down with Scottish comic author Mark Millar for a pint of Guinness. They discussed their love of classic spy films and decided to subvert the new tropes by bringing the spy genre back to its roots. Kingsman is a direct love letter to the James Bond films of old, while updating and reinventing the genre at the same time, and I love it so damn much. In the special features of the Blu-ray, Vaughn stated that spy films had become far too serious, and he wanted to make, quote, a fun one, something that would be enjoyable like the old days, and I think he did a fantastic job of it. The story of Kingsman revolves around our two lead characters, Harry Hart, played by Colin Firth, and Gary Eggsy Unwin, portrayed by Taron Egerton. Harry belongs to a secret organization known as the Kingsmen, an independent international intelligence agency funded by the British elite whose offspring were killed in World War II. They saw the world going to hell around them and decided to use their wealth to better protect the world instead of destroy it. Named after the tailor shop that outfitted them with gear, the Kingsmen operate in complete discretion as they eliminate global threats. Harry, codenamed Galahad, recruited Eggsy's father Lee into the Kingsmen 17 years ago, but Lee was killed during his final training exercise. Harry made a mistake, failing to see a bomb hidden on an interrogation suspect, and Lee threw himself on the grenade without a second thought, sacrificing his life to save everyone else in the room. Harry personally sends his condolences to Eggsy's family, handing him a medal, telling him to protect his mother, and letting him know if he ever needs help, he can always call in one favor. Back in the present, we see the death of his father has been hard on Eggsy and his mother, Michelle. Eggsy's new stepfather is abusive to him, while his mother is still traumatized by Lee's death. Meanwhile, Eggsy has become a chav, a British delinquent who hangs around in sportswear most of the time. While he initially attempted to rise above his status by joining the Royal Marines, doing quite well with his high grades and physical prowess, his mother threw a fit, afraid that he might die like his father did. After dropping out of the Marines, Eggsy just said, "Fuck it, bruv," and headed down the wrong path. At the same time, wherever he goes, he's beset by his asshole stepfather and his flunkies, so I can understand why he needs to let off some steam, and he does so in style by stealing a flunky's car and taking it out on a joyride throughout the town. He would have gotten away with it too, if not for a fox who decided to cross the road right in the path of his car. Eggsy slams on the brakes, crashing the car but sparing the fox, and showing us the noble points of his character. He's taken in by the police, and with no other options, he calls in the favor Harry promised. It's here where the two stories intersect for the remainder of the film. That morning, another member of the Kingsmen was killed in the line of duty. Agent Lancelot, one of the many people Lee saved with his sacrifice, was trying to rescue a kidnapped college professor. With his death, a void has been left in the Kingsmen, and each member brings forth a candidate to replace him. After testing him a bit, Harry chooses Eggsy as his candidate, and the recruitment process begins. While Eggsy trains and makes his way through the grueling tests of Kingsman recruits, Harry picks up where Lancelot left off. He tracks down the professor and uncovers a plan to kill off 90% of the human population. Both he and Eggsy will have to use everything they learned in order to stop the mastermind and save the world. From this point on, I will be discussing spoilers for the plot, so jump to this timecode if you wish to avoid any spoilers. On the surface, Kingsman is a classic Bond film that has been updated for modern audiences. There's a madman with an evil plan that needs to be stopped. He has a henchwoman with prosthetic legs that double as deadly weapons and are cool as all hell. You have a posh British spy who is capable of taking down baddies with relative ease, and fantastical sequences and gadgets that are outlandish yet firmly entrenched in old school Bond films. However, at its core, Kingsman is both a celebration and subversion of these spy films of old. There is a scene in the middle of the film where Harry and the villain, Richmond Valentine, played by Samuel motherfucking Jackson, express their love for old school James Bond films. Valentine says that when he was a kid, he wanted to grow up to be a spy, while Harry says he always wanted to be the villain. Valentine responds with, "Yeah, it's a shame we had to grow up." In yet another scene, Valentine has Harry cornered and states that this is like the old movies they both love. "Now I'm gonna tell you my whole plan and come up with some absurd and convoluted way to kill you, and you'll find an equally convoluted way to escape. Well, this ain't that kind of movie." And then he shoots Harry in the head. Kingsman toes this very fine line of being an homage, parody, and critique of the spy genre. It gives us everything we want out of a spy film, having huge amounts of fun all the while, and making the audience smile, but it also takes some of these tropes and subverts them. Harry and Lancelot's deaths are a part of it, but there's also a scene where Harry shows Eggsy how to make a martini the proper way, and it's the complete opposite of Bond. In classic Bond films, we know he likes them shaken, not stirred, but this actually waters down the drink, resulting in a weak martini. Here we have a good old proper Winston Churchill-style martini. Gin, not vodka obviously, stirred while glancing at an open bottle of vermouth. It's incredibly clear to me that director Matthew Vaughn knew what he was doing here. He plays to the classic tropes, catering to the fans of old school Bond films while poking fun at them. It's also interesting to me that the film centers around the youthful Eggsy, when spies tend to be the older and far more battle-hardened people in Hollywood. Focusing on a younger spy is another way of subverting the cliche, and I think it worked quite well. Far better than Agent Cody Banks, at least. Let's be honest, that was kind of a train wreck. Overall, this plot is extremely well crafted and does a fantastic job of appealing to both old and new fans of the genre. In terms of character, this film kicks it out of the park. Let me just start by saying that this cast is star-studded as all hell. Colin Firth and Samuel L. Jackson steal the show, but we also have Mark Hamill as the kidnapped professor, Michael Caine as Chester King, the leader of the Kingsmen, Jack Davenport as the original Lancelot, and Mark Strong as Merlin. Just damn! That's a lot of talent to have in one film, but I have to give special mention to Taron Egerton as Eggsy. This was Taron's first ever role in a film, but he drew me in even more than some of these seasoned actors. Eggsy is a character that I love simply because of the message behind the character. He's a bright young man who lost his father and finds himself in lower class society, but over the course of the film fights his way up to the top and becomes a gentleman in his own right. The driving message in this film resides in that gentleman status. At one point in the film, Harry quotes Ernest Hemingway to Eggsy. "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self." The entire point of Eggsy's journey is to realize that becoming a gentleman has nothing to do with the circumstances of one's birth. It's something one learns. This to me is so damn powerful. It is the film outright saying that it doesn't matter where you come from, you too can become like Bond or Galahad. You have the makings of greatness in you, no matter where you come from. The fact that Eggsy rises from the slums to become a super spy gentleman is something that I simply love, and something that not many films do. Yeah, we do have the underdog trope, but normally we have somebody with a special talent, important relative, or a chosen one narrative. Not here. This is all Eggsy with all hard work. Eggsy does all the work himself and climbs up the ladder on his own terms, and it is so damn awesome. Truly inspiring, and something more films should strive to include. Message aside though, Eggsy is a lot of fun. He's a cheeky street thug, kind of like my little Kiturkana, with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, but he's also a very nice guy. He goes out of his way to help people, but he's also hilarious with his witty observations and one-liners. Taron just does a great job of making him charming. You did a great job, bruv. Kudos. In direct opposition to young Eggsy, we have Harry, who is the James Bond of the film. He's a posh British gentleman who can kick ass and take names, and is the one involved in most of the initial spy action. The bar scene at the beginning of the movie demonstrates just how badass he is, and how cool it is to be a Kingsman. At the same time, Harry differs from Bond greatly. He's not a womanizer like Bond is. He's far more fallible than Bond, making numerous different mistakes throughout the film, and he despises the attitude of his rich colleagues around him. He invests his attention to both Lee and Eggsy when everyone else thinks it's just a waste of time, but he can see Kingsman potential in them both. He understands that greatness can come from anywhere, and these traits are what truly set him apart. He is a wonderful man, and Colin Firth was the perfect casting choice. I cannot think of anyone better in this role. Richmond Valentine, on the other hand, is a true return to form for spy villains. He's someone with a diabolic plan, and he is determined to see it through regardless of the cost. At the same time, Valentine has depth and humanity to him on a level we weren't seeing at that point in time. Before Killmonger and Thanos convinced audiences that they did have a point, Valentine was slamming his hands on his desk and making far more sense with his observations. Valentine is an internet billionaire, much like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, who found he had all this extra money and nothing to do with it. Instead, he decided to use his money to help save the planet, investing in research to stop global warming. After some time though, Valentine became convinced that the planet was beyond saving and tried a different solution, a culling of the human population. You see, global warming is the fever. Mankind is the virus. Essentially, Valentine has taken activism to a radical conclusion. He can't seem to find a way to save the planet through conventional means, however, he can stop what he believes to be the cause of the problem. He does have a point, but it's misguided and extremist. You see, global warming is a problem for humanity because it threatens our way of life, but the planet will survive long after we're killed by earthquakes and floods and other natural disasters. The planet is resilient, and killing off a bunch of humans doesn't really help anyone because the planet survives either way. But the way Valentine sells it is what makes it work. Jackson just has this charisma behind his speeches, and after a while you start to get swayed by his opinion, even if you know he's wrong. Vaughn stated that he missed the villains of Bond movies where they kind of had a point, you know? And you didn't quite know who to root for until the villain went too far and you cheered on the spy at the end. That's what Kingsman excels at. Another thing that adds to the humanity of this villain is the lisp that Jackson chose to give to the character. Initially, Vaughn wasn't sure about the idea, but Jackson explained that when he was a kid growing up, he had a lisp as well and had to overcome it for his acting career. Jackson felt that giving Valentine a lisp would help to explain his villainy even more. Jackson said that people tend to treat you differently when you have some form of disability, and for someone like Valentine, who grew to become an internet billionaire, the lisp would help to inform the audience about his character. The lisp ensures he feels looked down upon by the upper crust of society and drives him to these extremes. I have to say, I really love this addition, and I think Jackson truly nailed it with this portrayal of the character. I just couldn't look away whenever Valentine was on screen, and that's the mark of a good character. Especially the scene where they serve McDonald's at a rich person's house. Like, that was brilliant. In terms of presentation, Kingsman is top-notch. First of all, this cinematography deserves an award. It deserves all of the awards. These fight scenes are the best I've seen in a long time. The bar fight and bunker scenes feel so fast and fluid, but you still feel every single impact and the weight of that impact. The framing and movement of each shot is taken into consideration. The camera moves around a lot, but you never lose the action and you're sucked right into it. Then there's the church scene. Oh dear God, I love the church scene. In the middle of the film, we see a fight scene in the middle of a Kentucky church, and it is the most intense battle I have ever seen. I think it may be one of the best cinematic fights that I've borne witness to. It starts off fast, with people getting killed left and right as the villain tests out his evil weapon, but as the fight goes on, it builds and builds. It gets more and more frenetic as the weapons are used up and they start using random objects as weapons. As it continues, you see the people involved getting more and more tired, but more furious with their assault. This scene is also edited in such a way to make it feel like one continuous shot. In the behind the scenes features on the Blu-ray, they show how they edited the cuts and how hectic this shoot was, but man, they kicked it out of the park with this. It is truly the best scene in the film, and the cinematography sells that. As for the music, it is unique to say the least. At some points we have themes reminiscent of the old James Bond theme. Other times we have disco playing during a fight, while the henchwoman breakdances. There's an entire sequence of exploding heads set to Pomp and Circumstance. The opening credits is set to Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, and the church scene is set to Free Bird. It is completely all over the place, but it just works. Every single track fits so damn well on numerous different levels, and it's just so damn fun to listen to. Also, one of the end credit songs is This Heavy Crown by Iggy Azalea, which I consider to be her best song to date. This is a soundtrack I want to own because I jam out every single time I watch the film. Just mwah. Perfect. Overall, Kingsman is a damn fun time, but it also has incredible depth to it. It criticizes spy tropes, but it also revels in them, to the point where it feels like an evolution of those Bond films I love so much. The characters are wonderful and spectacularly well acted, and the cinematography and soundtrack deserve awards. I give Kingsman my highest stamp of approval. That's right, both Chiaki and Kana give this their full approval, and I cannot stress enough how good this film is. It is one of my top films in recent memory and one of my all-time favorites. It has held up so well over these years, and I think people need to see it. I don't even really have much to criticize about the film itself. The only part that makes me raise an eyebrow is the President of the United States, represented by a silhouette of Obama, agreeing to aid in Valentine's plan. Yeah, thanks, Obama. Other than that, this film is glorious and deserves your attention. I urge you, go watch this. It is worth your time. Kingsman: The Secret Service was a box office hit, raking in $414 million from its $94 million budget. With that in mind, sequels were inevitable, with Kingsman: The Golden Circle releasing in 2017 to mixed response, and a prequel film called The Kingsman is set to come out in September of this year. I'll touch upon both of these films in the future, but for now, I need to move on to other films. I don't think you guys can take too much more gushing from me, to be honest. Another thing to note is that Kingsman is kinda sorta based on a comic by Mark Millar called The Secret Service. The comic and film were in development at the same time, since they had the idea at the same time, but the comic went in a very different direction and came out a few years before the film, because producing comics is a lot faster than producing films. I haven't read the comic personally, and I don't have much knowledge on the comic industry or Mark Millar myself, but he seems like a very passionate individual in the behind-the-scenes footage. Perhaps one day I will review this with someone who knows more about the industry. Kingsman: The Secret Service was distributed by 20th Century Fox, and as such, it is rather easy to find at any movie store. Personally, I bought the collection at FYE, which is yet another steal. For $20, you get both films on Blu-ray, which is worth it for the first film alone. It is seriously a classic. The Blu-ray contains an hour and a half of behind-the-scenes and making-of featurettes, which are fascinating to watch and really helped me out in this review. It is a wonderful watch and shows just how Vaughn went about creating this masterpiece. With that being said, I am Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that you too can join the Bun Squad, my legion of cute, adorable fluffy bunnies that watch my videos, and be sure to hit that bell so that you too can get notified of every single new video that I make. Have a good one, everybody!
Now, kitten. I know you lost the Shokugeki, but that's no reason to make such a fuss. Another pint, please. Manners maketh man. Endeth. Do you know what that means? Then let me teach you a lesson.
Sorry, I'm being told this would be very expensive to animate, so instead here's some stock footage of an old plane trying to take off. They didn't have enough wings.